to the data, laughs in the mix. Fabric and AI, get your fix. Explicit measures, drop the beat now. Podcast kings feel the crowd. Explicit measures. Explicit measures. Drop it loud.
Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy and Mike. Hello, everyone. And how are you doing, Tommy?
Mike, I'm still digging the intro. You know what? It was good. It was nice for a change. And it's sketchy.
I feel like it's way better than the last one. And also, this morning, while Tommy and I were talking, I saw a little Tommy show up on his screen, and Tommy's like, "This is the guy. This is Mike. He's the guy who made the song that for Dad. They made Dad's song. I guess they're calling it like Dad's song now, which is
They call it the Tommy Puglia song.
The Tommy Puglia song. All right, good. Well, I like it. I think that's good. They have something to look up to. Their dad is now famous. You weren't famous before, but now
now that I'm on Apple Music. So.
Now that you're on Apple Music, you've leveled up, Tommy. You've leveled up. Let's jump into some topic pieces today here. Before we get into our main topics, we want to just talk about, okay, what is we kind of been doing some reflection here at the beginning part of this year. One of them has been, where does Fabric sit? Do we trust it? That was one of our recent topics. Mm-hmm. This one's going to be a bit around what does the world feel like with Direct Lake? How are we using Direct Lake? It's been out for a while now. We're starting to explore it a bit more. People should have some run time on it. Let's just unpack the idea of what is Direct Lake and are we finding value from it? So let's unpack that feature there and dig into the Direct Lake world. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of more of a specific area where we're talking about the Lakehouse has tables. The semantic model connects to those tables and kind of automatically caches and is able to update itself with the Direct Lake experience. It's not direct query, and it's not import mode. It's this new kind of not hybrid, but it's like a kind of a mix. It's a little bit different than those two experiences when you're loading data to a semantic model.
100%.
All right. That'll be our main topic. With that being said, let's move over to our news. Tommy, you found some AI. Shocker. It's in the news.
All right. So the first one, or really the main one we have, is from the Fabric blog. What they're simply doing now is before, if you were using any of the operations for Fabric AI, specifically in notebooks or Dataflow's Gen 2 related operations, and you wanted to know how much am I actually spending on these AI operations, you really couldn't know. It was under Spark operations. It was under its own, it wasn't really segmented out. Now, simply with billing is you can see in the Copilot AI capacity usage, there's a billing meter, simply allows you to see 3 different ways. Simply looking at AI functions and AI services are now split out so I can actually see them based on notebooks, the compute cost using the Fabric functions, or the compute cost using the Azure AI services, or using the AI functions in Dataflows or the notebook. So this is nice to know, especially if you are beginning to dabble in this. And one of the things you're doing is experimenting with cost to actually see how much am I actually spending, what percentage, even if I'm doing some functions.
Okay, I'm going to go to cost and spending and CU consumption here for a little bit. I've been playing around with my tenant here a little bit, Tommy. Tommy, do you use the Microsoft Fabric Capacities app?
I do. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I found an interesting edge case. This is maybe somewhat related to this conversation as well, not necessarily to the AI and CU usage, but I just recently spun up a Fabric Capacities app, and I was in my tenant. I have a trial capacity and a one that I pay for. So I have trial and one that's just an F2 because I'm testing out some things. On my trial capacity, you can go in to the admin portal and you can rename it. So I went in and I renamed my trial capacity. For whatever reason, and I don't understand exactly why, I've reinstalled the Microsoft Fabric Capacities app so I could look at the CU usage of that new Fabric SKU. It won't update. There's no information on the renamed capacity. Now, I think if you rename your normal capacities, like your paid capacities, it figures it out. But there's some kind of weird data thing happening when you look at the capacities in the capacity app when you rename them and they are a trial. For whatever reason, I'm not able to get the data back out. I'm actually going back to the Microsoft team, like, I think this is a bug. something's missing here. I can't quite see why I can't observe data for that particular capacity.
If
Which
you rename a capacity that you're purchased, I think you do that in Azure, and I think that's actually renaming it. There is no capacity for a trial in Azure, so I think that's more of a display name. So, right? So
Yeah.
I bet if you renamed it, which it would take you to Azure to rename it, I don't think you would rename the capacity in if it was an F2 or an F
Oh yeah.
license,
I think
right?
you have to go. Well, that's a good question, Tommy. I think you have to rename it there.
You have to rename it in Azure,
Yeah.
which you have to change. There is no location in Azure for renaming a trial. It doesn't exist.
It's so weird. It's just like all the data, if there was any, just doesn't exist now, and there's nothing on the trial capacity. It's just gone. There's just nothing on it. All the metrics are blank. There's no duration used, no nothing there. I'm like, great, I got a whole bunch of free
Oh,
stuff,
that's even worse. Oh,
but I
wow.
can't see
Yeah.
anything. I don't know. Like, so if I'm trying something, if I'm looking at like testing out some new feature or a combination of stuff, and I want to see what the usage looks like before I actually put it into production, I got no visibility. So I've kind of reached out to the Microsoft team to see if that's fixed. If you are working on trials, my recommendation right now would be do not rename them. If you rename them, you will break your Fabric Capacity Metrics app. It will not work. So I don't know if it's a bug I just found or what, but just FYI for those of you who have trial capacities laying around, do not rename them in the admin portal, because if you do, you potentially could break things. Anyways, that's going back to the related topic to the CU consumption.
Usage and cost, man. It's a necessary conversation.
I really think so, Tommy. There's a lot of things in Fabric that we build something one way, and then we build it initially with like Data Flows Gen 2. It works, but I really do think there's this idea of like coming back and revisiting as your team gets more knowledgeable, as you get more comfortable with Fabric. There is this idea or concept of we need to rebuild stuff. Like we have to take a
Well-
good look at this. And I hate to say it, Tommy, but we have so much AI laying around. But like AI is really good at looking at things and saying, hey, here's some M code. Can you please just rebuild this into a notebook?
Oh, yeah.
Like you could just build with you what you want and just say, read through this M code, figure out what I'm doing, make it more efficient, and then turn it into a notebook. And you could ditch the whole Data Flows Gen 2 experience. I think the AI now with these new Opus models that came out and some of these new Chat GPT, I think there's Chat GPT 5.3 codecs that came out. They're really good. And they're writing amazing code.
Well, the important distinction here, Mike, I think I mentioned this on a podcast last week or the week before, but I have a few projects, and I am such a proponent if you're using any of these AI products that you create a project on these with relevant context. So to your point, doing that translation, if you just send that in a chat in ChatGPT, you're going to get mixed results.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a Fabric Guru project, and then I have a Notebook Guru in projects. So they're two separate projects.
Interesting.
My wife has an API for a timesheet thing, and I'm like, all right, I could do all the research on the API here and create the connection. First, I created a notebook, it was great, but I'm like, my wife's small business is not going to be using notebooks. So I said, translate this into a direct Power Query. I'm going to use this in a Power BI, just direct connection. Done. So yeah, all that's possible. But going back to what you're talking about from the administration side, my previous life, that's what I was. I was the admin of Premium Capacity, and my responsibility, and the responsibility of anyone who has the Capacity app, and it was just Premium at the time, is to monitor these things to see where things are going rogue. And it's not just cost, it's what's taking up the most. And that was my responsibility to go through and let teams know, hey, your models here are killing us at these times.
Yep.
So we got to do something about that. Now you have 1,800 other things to monitor, other products and artifacts.
Yeah, and Tommy, also to this end, right? There's also something here that says there's a lot of this that's going on where when we look at the scope of what's being able to be built here, right? Like the scope of what we can do, we really should be looking at how can we leverage different tooling or AI pieces to help us build this stuff. So to your point, Tommy, right? I think everyone would argue today, it's not really easy for you to go around Fabric and use AI where you want to, what kind of AI you want to supply to some sort of space, right? Let's just go back to your example, Tommy. Hey, I've got some M code. I want to rework it or refactor it. I want to make it more efficient. there's not a really good experience to like get that code out and put it into some kind of editor, say,
Mhm.
hey, help me work through how can I make this better? Can I test this? Can I run this M code
Well,
against the space and see if it actually runs better or more efficient? Or I see a lot of novice people, they'll do like a rename, a drop column, a rename, some more things, another rename, another drop columns. And
change type, change type.
yeah, you have like, I'm guilty. I've done it. Like I just kind of got into the mode of like just shaping and building data. Like you get those kind of things just hanging around. Not that it's inefficient, but there's some patterns there. And also, to your point, Tommy, there should be like a skill. Hey, when I build, you know, data flows, here's the pattern we like to follow. Here's what's most efficient. Check this data flow and see when query folding breaks. Like that's the kind of stuff that we should be having AIs or other things to review with us and giving suggestions. How can I extend
Well,
the experience here to make this go farther without having to with doing more SQL query folding back?
I'm going to slightly disagree because you're technically right. In Fabric, there's not a really easy experience to basically do this seamlessly, but
Yeah.
the MCP
Okay.
is great at this.
Great. Okay, so there's a couple. There's a couple MCPs here. First, Tommy, give us what the name MCP stands for first.
It's called Model Context Protocol is what it stands for.
So for those of you who are just hearing this word for the first time, we've talked on this a number of times on the podcast, but the Model Context Protocol is like an application layer between like the large language model and then whatever the thing is that talks to the MCP server. And they call it a server. Is it really a server, Tommy?
I don't know. I maybe in the most bare definition of what a server is, it could be.
I don't know if I don't know if it's running a machine. That's what I don't
It's
understand.
got to run on your computer or in
Yes.
the service, and that is technically a server because usually you're not to get too nerdy here, but you're either doing like npm packages that's running something. So it is running something technically. It is running hosting somewhere.
Yeah, but there's all these. So this is what I don't understand exactly. Is it just like a list of instructions that the large
It's
language model can talk to?
So no, it's not. It's much more than just like a markdown file or a skill. Like it has that information,
Yeah.
but for it to run, it is more intensive there than your normal like just instructions, like system instructions.
And to be clear here, everything has an MCP server at this point. Like they're kind of
Oh.
all over the place. GitHub's got one. Azure's got one. Azure AI Foundry has one. We have two currently for Fabric, one for Fabric and one for Power BI.
Yeah.
That's specifically. So we already have two MCP servers already there.
Built by Microsoft. Yeah.
Built by Microsoft. There's also other community ones that I've seen pop up. I just saw someone try to sell one for $40 a month.
What?
To buy for an MCP server. And so I'm looking at all these different MCP server spaces, and there's a lot of them showing up. And any other app that you probably have, there's probably an MCP server for it. I use Figma a lot. There's an MCP server for that. All kinds of things. So, okay, Tommy, give me your experience. What were you like? What made you so excited about the MCP? What were you doing?
So it wasn't so in a nutshell, if you're wondering what the heck's an MCP, isn't that just a skill? In a nutshell, it allows you more than just saying, giving it context for, hey, here's what Power Query is. It can either have a much more intimate relationship with whatever the service or product is. And the best example is the Power BI one that runs on your machine. It can direct connect with a set of commands to a running Power BI model on your computer in the same way you would connect to Tableau Editor or DAX Studio, where it has the local host. So it has this direct connection to the model, and it can modify the model. It can take a look at it. It has a ton of instructions, but it can directly integrate and fix, modify, transform, load, and really build off that model. Now, this is really cool because you can go in Claude, let's say, and say, hey, I have a model open. Tell me about it. How many measures are there? And that's cool. And it can even fix things for you. But I know we did an episode about this before, but in the last few weeks, Mike, I have seen my use of this exponentially grow because when you think about it, I can just directly talk to a model by itself, and that's fine. But I use a lot of other tools, especially with my clients. One of them is Notion. I have my, customers, my project notes, the transcripts, all the things we're working on.
Yeah.
And I was curious. I said, well, I know what this milestone is and all the things that we have to do and the measures we have to create. I said, hey, take a look at X, Y, and Z, this milestone and what we have to do.
Mhm.
Also, I have the data up in this model. What are we missing? Like based on what the requirements are, based on what we're trying to build from the dashboard. And a little doop-a-doops, a little loading, and it basically outlined for me what's in my model, what we can transform now, what are some stop gaps that we have.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, right back to Notion, basically kind of a technical outline plan of what else we need based on the model that I have open right now.
Mhm.
Do,
Mhm.
do, do. And to me, it's
Yeah.
more than just doing these quick fixes. Is when you give it that roadmap, this is incredible. This is so much more than, again, just doing a simple chatbot. We are well past that. Now, for a lot of people, you're probably running things in OneNote or wherever your project notes are. You're probably related to some data that you have,
Yes.
and odds are Cloud can talk to it.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. So this is something. So I love this, Tommy, that you're giving this example. I had a very similar experience. My experience was very closely related. I had a Databricks semantic model
Mm.
or a semantic metrics view, basically, was what their version is. So Databricks doesn't do the same thing as semantic models that Power BI does. Basically, Databricks says, look, we already store all the data in tables. We're just going to write a bunch of SQL and or define names, columns, relationships, predefined SQL statements that we then can run on demand when you need this to be run. So you basically are building a semantic model in a little bit less Power BI semantic model level, but it's their version of a semantic model, metrics views. Well, I was given a metrics view basically, and then I had a Power BI report. The Power BI report had no descriptions, no measures, no columns and folders, nothing. And so I was like, oh, there's a lot of tables here, like 50 tables. I got to go through and like, I don't want to write all this down. So I went back. I to your point, Tommy, I brought in the MCP server. I pointed it at the Power BI report. I brought in the documentation into a folder inside VS Code and said, hey, go search through all of this 3,000 lines of code that was given to me that was all the documentation and find the equivalent tables in the Power BI report. And then I want you to find the table. And so I did all the work on just one table, find this table, go find each column and measures definition based on the other document. And this document I was given had a whole bunch of SQL in it. It had every measure or every column calculation, right? If I'm calculating a column or doing some logic there, all of that was built into the metrics view that was given to me. Great. So I just threw Claude at it and said, check this out. Go figure out what's there. Go read it. And then after it figured it all out, it said, okay, great. I have definitions for every single column. Brr. And in like a couple seconds, it wrote. And again, to be honest, Tommy, this is another one of these use cases that I think people are more willing to tell you something's wrong than to be able to make it up from nothing on the spot. Right. So people like at least a prompt.
Oh, yeah.
Starting point to react to, and then
people will let you know if something's wrong.
They'll have more opinion if something exists and it's not what they expect it to be. As if you ask them to define it, it seems to be harder to discuss and define something that's not been, materialized into someone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that to be very useful. I did all the semantic model documentation in like 30 minutes. Which normally, if I was going to document all these columns and write them up all myself, we're talking like a day, 2 days of just solid work. It was so efficient for me. So I really like this one. I've had a great experience with the MCP server. The other thing I would probably highlight here that I think is really interesting with the MCP server, and I think what you're finding this as well, Tommy, in larger models, if you have a really big model, if you wanted to make a measure, you have to write the measure and then you kind of like hit OK to go on to make the next measure.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you do that, you're submitting changes to the model. It's got to revalidate everything and then be good with the changes. For whatever reason, when the MCP server is talking to the Power BI models, it's doing batch edits. It's very efficient.
Probably doing like Tabular Editor.
Yeah. No, Tabular Editor is doing it like MCP.
Oh, my friend, which one came first?
Well, Tabular Editor did come first with the idea of bulk edits. But, I mean, Microsoft has always had this concept. The whole idea exists is editing multiple things at once, and you could submit all the changes at one time. That's kind of like ALM Toolkit's idea. Other things as well. So, very interesting. Like this, the behavior is really good. I thoroughly enjoy the behavior of this. So anyways, I just want to kind of point out, like, this is really good. I am finding a lot of value from the MCP server. If nothing else, learning agents and AI things just to talk to the MCP server, I think is a big win. I think it'll save you tons and tons of time later on. Any other thoughts on the news items, Tommy, before we move on to the main topic?
I am ready to roll, my friend.
All right, we are rolling. Okay, let's hop on over to our main topic today, Tommy. Our main topic will be all around the living in the Direct Lake world. I feel like this is a song. Living in Direct Lake world. Is that,
That is living in America.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
What you were going
we can
at?
write a song about it. We'll see what AI says.
All right, I got to fire up my
That
AI.
might have some copyright infringement, but so
Amazing. All right, give us some vision here, Tommy. Where do you want to take this conversation?
all right. So with more and more of our process and what we talk about more is lake houses, and that's kind of the integration, the kind of the primary point of pushing our data, storing our data, which obviously logic within reason that I'm going to use that lake house to build my report and build my model. We now no longer have the default semantic model, so we can build our semantic models off of the lake house, which is really the preferred method if you're using Fabric. That capability, or that when you do that, you are using a mode called Direct Lake so no longer importing our data. If I open a semantic model or open a Power BI file and I'm going to connect to a lakehouse, immediately we're using Direct Lake. That is near real-time freshness, scalability, and basically as soon as the lakehouse updates, my model updates. No importing, refreshing everything, going through all the transformations. And which is disruption when you talk about the first 9 years of our lives in Power BI. What did we always say? It was import mode. There were 3 modes, and we 99.9% of the time were using import mode. I'm going to connect to, even if it was a Dataflow Gen 1, but I'm importing the data using Power Query to transform the data. It's going to have to do the refresh, the transformations, connect to the source.
Yes.
Now, we're 2 years into Fabric. Lake houses are all the rage. It's still the preferred method. So the question that I think then arises, are we now primarily using Direct Lake, pushing people to use Direct Lake? Is that now the number one option, just like we used to say that import was the primary way, the preferred way, the best practice way? Or does import still have some claim to the throne?
Wow, Tommy.
You like that? That was,
very
cusp.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of your comments are very, like, not polarizing, but they're like very strongly worded. Like,
Yeah, it's a podcast, so
it was
if
kind
I
of,
said I don't care either way, what do you think? So
yeah, it makes for good. It gets for good TV.
it's good for TV.
Yeah. So I like, there are some advantages of the Direct Lake things that I really like, right? When you're talking really large data, or you're talking about, I don't want to have an extra load step or load processing step for the import. I don't want to spend extra compute to import data into a semantic model. So think of it this way. Here's some of my mental model, what's happening here, right? If I have a Direct Lake, if I have a lake house with tables in it, and I'm trying to get the data from the lake house into the Power BI semantic model, the Direct Lake format is Delta, and it has Parquet files under the hood. That format is already, depending on where you write it in from, and if you have the Spark settings turned on, it will automatically V-order the data, Vertipack order the data. So Microsoft has a proprietary formula where they try to repack the data in a way that's most efficient, so that way when the report needs to access the chunks of data, it's very efficient for it to go get that information and pull it into the reporting, right? So this V-order thing is very important. Databricks has a very equivalent feature called Z-order, where it kind of like lines things up for you. That was there first, basically. But the Z-ordering is like another way of optimizing how you store the files and like which rows of the data go together, and that way when you read it, it's efficient. Okay. The reason I bring this up is because if I don't have that, if I'm doing import again, right? Think what has to happen. I'm using the semantic model to go talk to the lakehouse. Now, I'm not 100% confident this is what's actually happening, but in my mental model, I need to go model connect to lakehouse, send rows of data recompact them into V order, put them in import mode, store inside semantic model, and then semantic model in import mode can then service data. So there's always another step of compute whenever you're doing import. The data doesn't just
Sure.
automatically show up because the model can automatically refresh the Direct Lake connection. I mean, and again, I'm saying automatically. I'm saying I've observed within 5 minutes of the data being updated in the lakehouse, the semantic model is trying to get updates of new information. So it's fairly quick. It's not instant, but it's fairly quick. So that being said, if I'm trying to be more efficient with my pipeline and my process, and I don't want to worry about the import step, or I have a bunch of series of processes that are running and they're going to get done at different times. Like I'm loading different tables at different speeds at different times, maybe throughout the day. Certain tables are getting updated, certain tables are not. If I don't want to worry about any of that and continually having to do very fancy refreshing or re-importing the model, I think Direct Lake's the way to go, right? Because it just kind of handles it. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm describing?
100%. Oh, 100%.
Okay. Then on the flip side of this, I go back the other way is, okay, one, let's just say I don't really want all that, right? Let's just say we're really doing batch loading. I'm doing the processing, everything's done. We have tables completed in Lakehouse, and then I want to import the semantic model. It's running through a pipeline. That's a lot of my architecture, right? A lot of my pipelines or orchestration events using notebooks to process data, move tables from bronze, silver to gold, and then I have import models hanging off of that. I would argue, Tommy, the import model gives you more flexibility with how you design your workspaces. So let me give you some context here, right? If I have an import model, I can keep the Lakehouse in a very small F SKU. If you watch the usage on background application running, so running your data flow, running your notebook, those seem to have a much lower consumption rate than interactive or report or semantic model consumption. So as I look at that, I think, well, I don't really want to put my semantic model in the Fabric capacity. I don't really want to put my report in the Fabric capacity. I don't need them to be there. And let's also imagine, Tommy, we have a number of pro users, but we're starting to get really large models, right? If I want to use a semantic model in a Fabric capacity that is 100 gigabytes in size, you've got to go to a pretty expensive Fabric SKU to allow the semantic model to grow to that size. So conversely, if I don't do that, I can pay $14 per user and get a 100 gigabyte model per user who's using the workspace. So I think there is some design cost considerations where if you're a small team, the premium per user is still a bargain of a deal, really good deal. And if you need really large models in a small team, still premium per user is a bargain of a deal. Now, do I use Direct Lake in that? Probably not, because you put the model over in a different workspace. You want it to probably import and do incremental importing of things. So I'll probably do the import model in a premium per user workspace because I get a really high threshold on how much that memory that model can use.
This is true.
That's versus in the Fabric space. So I'm seeing shifting designs now, right? Before it was throw everything in a Fabric space for the data engineering and then make a new Fabric workspace for the reporting and the semantic model. I don't know if that always holds true anymore. I think it's a blend of these designs depending on what you need. And we might have just lost Tommy. I think he accidentally closed the window here. So let me bring him back up here. 1 second.
We're still here. I didn't do anything. I just said waiting for host to join. And I was like, I don't know. No, the host is here. Okay. Can you hear me?
We're back.
Cool. Hey, 500 episodes in, we still got problems. So
perfect.
We're still not getting, the important distinction that you made here, because I was going to argue with you about the fact that, okay, I don't want to put that capacity, the usage on my Fabric SKU. Well, my friend, you would still do import though. And import is expensive in itself. The important distinction that you made is premium per user, which still has this not unlimited ability in terms of what it can handle, but you're not paying extra.
Correct.
And you do have up to a lot of leeway with a premium per user.
You're right, Tommy. Like in the premium per user, you are using import mode and you are waiting for the time. So really the trade-off to me is not cost at this point, right? So if you go, so let's,
If we're talking premium per
yeah,
user, it's Fabric.
or even
That
pro for that, pro users too, like pros.
sure.
So let me just tease out the idea that you're describing here, which I think is a very valid point, actually, Tommy. Right? If I make a lake house in a Fabric workspace and I make an import model in the pro and premium per user workspace, the only thing I'm penalized is the 2-hour time of window to load the data. That's
Right.
the only penalty I get because I could refresh that model up to 8 times per day, up to 24, was it 36? Every 30 minutes.
Mhm.
So you could refresh your model up to 24 times a day. No, 48 times a day in premium per user. So all of that can just happen, and now it's just a matter of how long do you want to wait for the model refresh? Like that's all you have to worry about.
Now, you are speaking though about a 100 gigabyte model, and in my head, I can see a bell curve, and I'm considering how big are the tails on the ends in terms of how often is that the case for, especially a mid-sized small business in your situation
Ooh,
here.
Good question, Tommy. 100 gigabytes is not the threshold you should be worrying about. It should be
Right.
it's the 1 gigabyte level because that's the tipping point between moving from a pro license to a premium per user license.
Sure, but even a gig, I know that definitely happens, and that's
More often
definitely
than
a case.
more and more now, I think. Like if you had asked me like a couple months ago, I'd probably say most of your models will sit underneath a 1 gig limit.
Why now?
I think there's just this idea, well, the proliferation of data, right? If I have a lake house and I have the ability to make or get access to more data, I think companies are kind of maturing here. They're bringing in more data. They're getting better at loading lots of information. I think because of that,
Mhm.
models are now starting to bloat beyond the 1 gigabyte size limit more often than you would think. And so I think this is becoming more common. And now you're getting, and why would you put a premium per user workspace SKU in there if you weren't needing to get people to push over that threshold and start buying more, buying the $24 SKU as opposed to the $14 SKU, right?
Yeah,
Right?
sure, yeah, and honestly, too, for models that are under 20 gigs, the benefits of Direct Lake are pretty minimal. Direct Lake really shines when it comes to your, let's say, the common size of a model. Let's say like whatever's in the middle of that bell curve, which I don't imagine would be, anywhere from 100 megabytes to 900 megabytes. If you were to say what is the most common size, if Microsoft were to take a median, looking at all the sizes of your models, I would still argue that it's still pretty low, not low, but I don't think it's close to a gig yet of all the models out there.
So then what you described to me is not a bell curve because bell curves would have a normal distribution around the middle of the distribution there. So,
But I'm trying to figure out what that middle of the distribution is.
well, I would argue it's skewed to the left. It's a distribution that has a heavy,
all fat, yeah.
it's got a lot of heavy skew to the left.
Okay.
So I would argue with you, Tommy. Like I agree with you, but I think you're right. If we had a plot on a graph or put all the dots on a graph, right? If you had the x-axis be the size of the
Right.
model and the y-axis be like the number of models that are there, this is great. We're doing a podcast and we're describing charts to people.
Hey,
This is
it's better than doing a meme podcast.
this is going to be
Who do
yeah.
that?
This is going over so well. But if I had to visualize what that map would look like, I would argue heavily on the under 1 gig limit size.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that's where a lot of people are going to play. And I think also, Tommy, if you looked at the distribution of data points, you're going to see a huge amount of data points butting up against the 1 gigabyte limit. And I have a reason for this. There's going to be a good amount of small
yeah.
data points, but you're going to see a huge pile of dots just in front of
950. Yeah.
like right in front of the 1 gig limit, and then just after the 1 gig limit, you'll see another pile because there's a lot of people avoid the 1 gigabyte limit like the plague.
Mhm.
And so people will get as close as they can to not have to pay for the higher level SKU. And so I would argue if we do have a pileup of semantic models, they're all going to be at the 900 megabytes, 950 megabyte level. There's going to be a huge pile right there because people are going to be intentionally trying to trim as much fat as they can to keep it below, so they're not having to pay for a premium per user workspace for all their users.
And outside of size, I think we've touched on the size one. Outside of size, there's also the conversation too of where import still shines and maybe why you would want to prevent that, because you still have the developer experience if I'm using import, because I can import data, and I can still do all the transformations I need to. In Direct Lake, you are making the assumption the data is ready to go as is. When
Yeah,
I'm connecting to a Direct Lake,
you're not in Power Query at that point.
right, I am assuming when I'm connecting to
I
them, if
agree.
I'm gonna, yeah. So there's assumption, there should be the assumption, or should already be there. But what you're saying when you're doing Direct Lake is, I assume and I trust the data is in the right format, structure, and usually you create that semantic model anyways beforehand. So I'm like, right. So right now, that experience for a developer to create a semantic model off Direct Lake is open up Power BI, I connect to my OneLake, and I'm not building the report in there. In fact, there is no canvas. You are building the semantic model only. That is a file you don't have to save. It auto saves. It's a pretty cool experience.
I like it.
So when I build a report, right, I am no longer having the developer experience. We just talked about the report developer. There you go. Now with import, I still, even off clean data, if I need to see the data in a different way, maybe we're doing a customer churn or whatever the case may be, we need to do some filtering, or however whatever the situation calls for, I still have the ability to transform the data any way I deem fit in import. So there
And
are two distinctions from the purpose here.
yes, and Donald's doing a really good job here as well, kind of keeping us honest here, right? In the Direct Lake mode, right, you do have the ability of changing column and table names inside the semantic model, but you're not adding net new columns. I'm not
Right.
going back into the M code and shaping or adding things there as
Right.
well. So those are things that we're not yet doing, and I
You
think
can polish, you cannot transform.
but this fits, I think, the best, so yes, I agree with you. I think the developer experience changes when you go over to Direct Lake mode. But then I would also argue, Tommy, like the whole reason we're doing Direct Lake mode is we're taking the time and compute that we would need to do every import, and we're centralizing it into another set of tools, right?
You're
So
bringing it upstream, another level upstream.
well, this is Matthew Roach's maxim, right? So this is Roach's maxim: transform the data as far upstream as possible and as far downstream as necessary. This fits with good practice when you're building data design, right? You don't want a whole bunch of imported models. And I would also argue
Whoa,
to your
whoa, 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 whoa! A hot take there. You wait. What did you tell me that again? You don't want a lot of import models. That's what you said.
no, I don't
I
want
am.
to. I don't
So,
want to. Let me rephrase what I'm saying there, right?
yeah.
You don't want when you are doing a lot of transformations downstream, you don't
Ah,
want your data transformations to live only in the import models, right? So like you can
ideally.
you can still do the imports, like that happens, right? But like the best practice here for doing data engineering is move some of that computing upstream. And the other thing here too is when you do the data engineering in the semantic model with an import mode, and you shape tables and do things there, you are locking that business logic or whatever you've created into that semantic model. Now, yes,
Mhm.
there's some effects of like you can take a semantic model and you can have the tables dumped out to the OneLake, and like there's some synchronization things that happen there already. But in general, you've locked business logic into a single semantic model. So if any of
Yes.
those tables you're using need to be reused somewhere else, you really need to take an effect, Roach's maxim, and start
Mhm.
transforming the data somewhere else and only importing the table. I will also argue with you, Tommy, or not argue, I'll argue the point that when I started moving more towards Direct Lake, I was much happier as a developer, just in general, because I had a whole bunch of extra tools that I really like working in. And again, I'll keep encouraging people to don't be scared of notebooks, don't be scared of Python. It's a great developer experience. I really like it. And I am more comfortable now than ever jumping into notebook like experiences, shaping data, pushing things around, using lake houses to do the transformations upstream. I think that's a much better process for reusability of data. I think it's a much better process for maintaining the code to transform the data. I, in general, will push that even on very small projects. I'm very comfortable pushing into notebooks and lake houses because I think that's a very
So,
efficient way to build.
oh man, you go right into a reoccurring conversation we always have on the skill level here, because there are trade-offs here. And I'll say this first. I completely agree with you in terms of, for me, my own personal opinion is the preferred method to go, especially if you're trying to work on governance, if you're trying to work on adoption, is to centralize things in the lake house and use the direct lake mode. If
Mhm.
especially if you're building, like if I'm building a certified model, like it better at this point, in more uncertain terms, it better be in direct lake rather than import. That sucker better be in a lake house, and that semantic model better be connected to that, rather than, to your point, that isolated environment of transformations that would happen in the semantic model and import. However, there are trade-offs, though. There are trade-offs where I don't think we can bury import mode right now. For one, your MCP server, if you're using that,
Yep.
well, it kind of becomes irrelevant at that point, because
Why?
you're not doing transformations with an MCP server. An MCP server allows you to do transformations to the semantic model. Now, I don't believe there's no Power Query there. You cannot do transformations in Power BI desktop. Let's say you had a direct lake model, and I said, Mike, you need to change the table here. We need to add this logic in this column. Well, where do you have to go back to? You have to go back to your notebook or wherever you did that transformation, to the lakehouse, not to the model, to make those transformations. So that's a big distinction. You may be able to do DAX with MCP server, but any transformations of the table, obviously you can't.
I'm trying to remember what I'm trying to look. I'm literally trying to bring up my VS Code right now. I'm trying to think of, does the MCP server have any ability to modify the M code?
The only no, it can't, there's no M code really within direct lake.
In direct lake, no, but I thought you were saying the MCP server can't manipulate the M code.
And if it's import.
Oh, I see your point now.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying, okay,
no. So, but
the
you
MCP server
lose
does have the
that
ability to edit.
Right.
Yeah, you lose that capability, and but again, I agree.
Well,
but fair trade-off for reusability, fair trade-off for not having to re-import everything every time you're doing it. Yes, I agree.
The other thing too, but again, to the question I asked you, I know you're looking it up, but if I needed you to make a change to the table in the semantic model, if it was direct lake, you're not doing that in Power BI desktop. You have to go back to your notebook to make that change, to modify the table, right? If I said, hey, the semantic model is missing X, Y, and Z. Well, you're going back to notebook. You're going back to Fabric to update the lake house, and which in turn will update the semantic model. And this is where, still to this day, Mike, we were talking about this offline right before.
I mean, not
of
really.
the listeners, how many people are actually using AI now? I would make the same argument about how many people are using notebooks if you were a pure Power BI developer.
Hold on. Let's quantify what you mean by use AI. Okay,
sure. Let's define. Yeah, let's create our measurement here
real quick, because I think your expectation of what use AI is different than maybe what I'm thinking use AI is, right?
In the context of this conversation, I am saying those who are using AI, relying on it on their professional use case in their professional lives, in their career, not to build things or to see what the recipes are. I'm saying if they're using it to integrate with their job, especially in the world of data and Fabric.
There are some limitations that I think just naturally exist there, right?
Sure.
So I would agree. Your organization has to buy off on, can we use the thing, right? If you are only given access to Copilot M365, Copilot in Fabric, the experience, in my opinion, has been somewhat limiting. It does some things kind of well, but it's not really wowed me in any way. I'm not looking at going, wow, this really made my time in life easier.
It'll make you 20% more efficient.
Not even. Maybe. And then, it'll make you 20% maybe more efficient, but then 15% of the time you're mad at it. And then maybe you start saying you're stupid, and I'll tell it how I really feel. I wonder how many comments are coming in like, you dumb AI, I don't know what you're doing.
Have you ever cursed at your AI before?
I've never cursed at it, but I've definitely I've said, you're stupid, stop it. That's not what I want. You're an idiot. Like I have said that to the AI. It's just like, oh, I'm sorry. I'll rethink what you were doing. Like, okay.
Don't be sorry. Just fix it. Yeah.
Think harder. Use more compute. You need more tokens. So like, I'll get pretty bent about that. But to your point, Tommy, like, okay. But the broader idea here, right? So you're saying AI, right? AI tips over the threshold of sometimes I use it to everyone's using it. Like when your parents are starting to send you, like they ask you like, oh, I'm feeling whatever, I'm feeling sick. da da da. Oh, here, I just take some energy C and some vitamin C. It really helps me out. And then they send you back a Chat GPT article that says vitamin C has been statistically proven not to really help out with colds, like all this stuff. And you're like, okay, well, it's working for me right now. I feel like it's working. If it's placebo or not, right? It's working for me. And now that my parents are now sending me things they're using Chat GPT for, right? It just tells me that people are becoming more normalized to be able to use AI to assist them.
Fine. That's still a personal use case.
Agree, but I think it starts there and it's going to continue to bleed in. So people are going to find value from
Right.
AI in personal use cases. It's
Right.
going to continue to bleed into, well, if I use the AI at home to go research why my nose is sniffly, why can't I use the same AI to help me to build other things other places? I see there's a button here. I'm going to try it and see if it adds value. So to your point though, Tommy, I agree. This is kind of a weird off case story, but I think the use of AI is greatly coming more mainstream, and the expectation that people aren't willing to use it is becoming more normalized. I think it's just becoming better.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Let me ask you a question. What are we going to see in the next 2 years? Because I mentioned that if you need to do transformations on a direct lake, you got to go back to the notebook. Where are we going to see a more I cannot say that word, a higher rate of adoption for data people? Is it going to be in notebooks in Python, or is it going to be in AI? If you were to ask the question 2 years from now, more people will be using X in their data operations or adopting X.
This is going to largely depend on what Microsoft actually builds for us, right?
Okay.
One of the things I think that's very much strapping us right now is I don't know what model you're using in Fabric to run Copilot. I just don't know. Is it ChatGPT 4 Mini? Is it ChatGPT 4.0? I don't know what version. Is it Sonnet? Is it Haiku? I'm guessing it's not anything from Claude, because I'm feeling like right now Microsoft is being inundated with Anthropic and Claude models. And the reason I say this is because I just read the article around Claude Cowork is now able to build PowerPoint slides and Excel files
much better than Copilot
can. So like let's have a build off between Copilot and Claude Code's Cowork, and you're going to see that I think Claude Code right now is by far in the lead.
Let's be real, Mike. Just Claude in general is better at building PowerPoints than Copilot. Sorry, Microsoft, but
well, I just means there's
you don't even need Cowork. I know, yeah.
When they land a Claude experience as a plugin or an add-in to Excel and Word and PowerPoint, and it just does so much better than the native application, there's got to be heads rolling at the top.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's got to be. I don't know the stories or what's happening inside, but there's got to be at the leadership levels going, what are we doing wrong? Why can't our own product deliver this level of value? And we're getting third parties to do this for us. If Microsoft doesn't step in here and just say, a couple things. Microsoft should just squelch this bug right now. They should go buy Anthropic. They need to go buy Anthropic
right now.
They need to do it. I mean, it would be
like AOL buying Time Warner.
But do you like? It's like Apple going over to Gemini and saying, "Look, Siri sucks. It's not good. We need Gemini to come in and go do it." Like so. If you're not good in the area, if it's not coming out, it's not working for you people, right? If you're bleeding money and no one's using the tool, right? Then you got to go acquire the skill or get the thing in and quickly pivot here. We're in a space right now where things can be won and lost very quickly. The wins can change very quickly between using one tool or another. You know, all we need is a decision from a handful of businesses to say, we're dropping all M365 Copilot and we're just going to go all in on Claude Codework. And then a huge amount of money just moves out of Microsoft into these tools that do provide value. So you've got to be the company that provides value. Now, one of the big misses I think that's been here is a lot of the Copilot experience hasn't been built around the creator experience. I think we're still not there in the Microsoft space. Is the creator, the person who creates, making their life easy, making it really easy for you to create things. That's the thing we need. And so I think this is where Microsoft is starting to gain momentum. And again, they're never the first to any of these ideas. They kind of always come in late, and they usually do a good job and do it more efficiently because they're a little bit late to the game. But I think they're going to get it figured out here, and it's going to get better. I don't even know where I was going with all this, Tommy.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer my question because I got you off a rant. So,
Sorry. Yeah.
I realize your trigger word's AI. So, okay.
Yeah, true.
So, my question, in the next 2 years, if you were to say if in the data world, data operations, are more people going to adopt notebooks, or are they going to adopt AI in general, using that on their day to day? As of today, Mike, even though I recommended that Direct Lake is the preferred method for your semantic models,
Mhm.
I am not going into an organization and building all these notebooks to do semantic model, then handing this off, especially to a mid-sized company where they do not have the skill around Python or notebooks or operations. Do you know why? Because I can do dashboard in a day. I am not doing notebook in a day for new users. It's easy to do import. This is an important trade-off, going back to our real
Mhm.
conversation here. Even though we know the limitations of import, it only exists in the semantic model, yada yada yada. You, by using notebooks, by virtue of using that higher level skill, lose a lot of people in terms of their ability to create and develop using their own data. When I'm using notebooks and that experience as of today, I'm not using AI. Listen, I'm doing an Excel training right now. There are still people who would not consider themselves by any means developers or data professionals, but use Power BI and build off Power BI. And they're not technical, but they use it, and they use it pretty well, and they rely on it. Now, if I change that to a notebook, they're gone. They're gone. They're not going to just immediately adopt that or begin that process. When I'm using Power Query, and this is still such a selling point for import, and this is still such a selling point for Power BI desktop, is the fact that anyone can use it. 90% of what you can do clicking and dragging in a user interface. And we cannot forget about this part where this is why we can't bury import to me, because companies rely on this. And it's not just a centralized BI team who knows all the DAX and is using Tableau Editor 3 in their enterprise tooling. So for me, I can't go to an organization, tell them we're moving everything to Direct Lake and to lake houses. Oh, by the way, if you want to transform any of your data, please go to these notebooks and learn Python and learn Spark.
I don't think you're doing that anymore. Tommy, I honestly, yes, I agree with you. I think you're going to have import. Yeah, but Tommy, I don't write notebooks anymore. My first pass on a notebook is not me writing it. Okay,
it's AI.
In the last month,
that's you though.
I'm telling you, it's not that I can do it. It's the fact that the capability exists. In this, it's just Microsoft hasn't built it yet. So let me imagine something for you, Tommy, right? I have an OpenClaw bot that I have provisioned with an app registration that can talk to a workspace. It treats it just like an employee, and I can go talk to it and say, I have this data set. Go look at the data set and build a notebook that does this. I've written a handful of notebooks. I'm just This is all experimentation for me, right? At this point, I tell it what I want. Go build this. It builds the markdown. It writes the documentation. It builds additional functions. Everything. And I'm getting to the point of I'm getting so lazy that I don't even want to write or manipulate the function. I just tell it what I want. Hey, I didn't like this part of it. Because not only is it I'm doing it on one cell, I'm maybe having it repeat a pattern across many different cells. So I'm again, I'm probably way more ahead than most people in this space, which is fine.
Yeah.
I get it. But if I'm doing it now, what tooling needs to be introduced or brought into the Fabric ecosystem where I can say, hey, bot thing, whatever the thing is, I'm going to call it an agent or a bot. I need a notebook that reads this data from this SQL view in this SQL server in Fabric. I need you to parse through that information. I need you to XYZ the things. I want to program with natural language. I want to talk to it with how I'm talking to it. So, Tommy, I understand your hesitation to push people towards Python and everything like that, but there should be zero risk for anyone to step into this and say, I can't write this because I don't know. because already you've got a free Copilot sitting in your browser that knows the language of Python better than you ever will,
Mike,
or SQL better than you ever will, or M better than you ever will. You've already got a buddy. The thing is, you just don't know how to use it yet, and we don't quite have the tooling inside Fabric to do it.
I always hate
In
Go
6
ahead.
months or less, Tommy, this will be the
Ooh,
in 6 months or less, you will be writing notebooks with an agent. You will describe what you want it to do, how you want it to connect, and the first pass on many notebooks will just be AI driven. 100% predict that one.
all right.
I will bet
What day
so
today. Today is February 19th, so that puts us.
You heard it here first, everyone.
All right, yeah.
Tommy
Okay.
is going to owe me a steak in 6 months.
Deal. So, all right, I'll see you then. So, I hate disagreeing with you on this because I agree with you in terms of the experience and how much better, and yes, all the things. However, I think where you and I really differ here is that level of who we're talking about here. If I'm talking about someone who's already in our case listening to the podcast, who's already a developer and use all the tools, yeah, they're going to adopt this too. But let me ask you this, rather than just pure arguing with you, if the experience that you said is available in 6 months, which puts us into August, start of the school year, if this experience to you said is available to the T, it's available in Fabric, it's seamless. By your definition, then we're bearing import mode, right? Because then everyone, if this experience, because at that point, then you expect every person who's building Power BI, from Nancy, who doesn't know how to extract a zip file, or Tim, who doesn't know where Power BI desktop is on their computer, making up names here, to those people who are still building right now, they're all going to the notebook experience and just chatting in natural language and just trusting that the data is right. The difference, even with AI today, and as much as I use it, and I use it a lot, there's still a developer experience there because you have to test and verify. You have to go through the data. It is not, we're still not at a point now where, actually we're close, where I can call my AI and just say, yeah, but I'm saying I still have to
left, dude. I said we're getting close.
Okay, so let me go back to my question then here.
Tommy,
if in 6 months,
no, hold on. Why do I even need any of this crap? Why do I even need? So, like, the data engineering world is going to get rocked in the next 6 months. It's going to get rocked, and you're going to skyrocket. You're going to skyrocket. Oh, Polymarket. That's really funny. Someone made a comment here. You guys should make these bets on Polymarket, and then have people take bets.
Oh, yeah. I don't think
Polymarket is in the US, but if it was,
that may be an MVP thing too. We're not going to touch that. So we lose our, that's a one way to, hey, how do you not become an MVP anymore? Start betting on it.
Betting on Polymarket. So that's an interesting concept. But back to your point, Tommy, like I think in general, the general feel for me here is the data engineering world is going to get rocked in the next couple months. It's going to be, so in the software world, we're already getting this earth-shaking movement of changing things that are happening at a totally different level. And let me just give you some concepts in the software world, Tommy. This I'm observing.
Mike,
in the software
world, this from an import mode. Like, tell me about this in the data world. we know what's happening in the software.
Well,
it's
world. Happening. So I'm trying to overlay what is already occurring in the software world, which is I can decide and devise. I can devise the requirements around what I want to build. This is what I expect to be created. It's the PRD, the product requirements document. That's what is so important. Once I have the requirements of what I need, the agent is really good at figuring it out. So at some point, why do I even care what the pipeline looks like? Why do I even care what the SQL notebook is doing, or Fabric notebook, or Python notebook is doing? If I can just communicate to the AI, and back to your point, Tommy, about tests, right? This is a skill that I don't think people have developed yet, which is if we're going to trust the AI to do more of the data transformations, we should really start with the tests and write the tests first. I know John Kursky is on the chat here right as well. So I'm gonna call on the powers of John Kursky, who's in the chat right now, and I'm pretty sure he'll agree with me. testing and data quality is paramount. And we should probably start with, what do we define as quality data first? Define the kind of tests we care about that we would want to run on the data. And then once we know those become instructions, requirements that then tell us how to go do the rest of the actual data engineering. A lot of the times I think, me personally, I think of going from, okay, data's in the lakehouse. Now let's build the notebook. Now let's build the table. And I think from the back forward, I think in this new agentic world, or building things with agentic developer experiences, we're going to need to focus more on, what are the requirements? What are the tests I want to make sure that are good? Start with that and then work my way back down to, given these tests, shape the data for these tests. And then we work backwards down to the data. And all that can be done with the AI. And there's not a lick of code or notebook that I could write better than any AI at this point.
And so you're telling me then that really at this point, if this is the world that we're living in, then we're kind of bearing import mode, where import mode becomes the niche use case at this point. And even if you are doing import,
I think import mode now just lives more on licensing. So let's go back to import versus direct lake, right?
yeah,
I think it's more of a licensing issue than anything else, right?
really,
If you take the effort to data engineer in more efficient systems, so let's just think of it this way. Let's just say right now, today, right? I got to know notebooks. I got to know Python. I got to know all the things. What is a lake house? How do I store the data, right? If you take all that knowledge and stack that up against, I can just do it in import mode and Power Query. You're going to obviously say most people are going to be more comfortable just starting with Power Query and going there. The bar is so low and the knowledge is already known. Adding all this other tech stack on top of it is difficult and hard to learn. Let's just say, what do you do when that tech stack shrinks in knowledge difference and you're almost at the same level, where it's, instead of just going to Power Query and telling it what to do, you talk to it and say, I want to do this. And then I would argue all the technical hurdles that we are identifying here are actually just gone. They've melted away, and we're almost at the same level as Power Query, and maybe even a bit better than Power Query, because now I don't have to know what buttons to build in Power Query. I just describe what I want and it just does it. So to me, I'm looking at this going, the best practice for Matthew Roach's maxim is transform the data as far upstream as possible. Will my import have transformations in it in the future? They are already having less and less and less transformations right now. Import for me is almost always load a table from somewhere, put it in the report. I almost 100% do transformations outside of the Power Query. And
I would agree with that.
So we're already there on that front. So then the only thing left is, well, what kind of licensing do you need? Do you have any kind of issues around lag time or lead time to do data processing in something and then have another time delay that is now import mode? So that's what you have to weigh. Is it worth it to keep your model in a lower premium per user or pro user workspace? Then you stick with import. You're going to have to stay there if you're pulling data from the lake. If you want the direct lake experience, you're going to have to move the model and report into Fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's a licensing decision, right? Do we have enough size of Fabric SKU to support the size model that we want? Because on those lower end SKUs, you're getting a really small semantic model. It's 1 gig. I mean, F2 through like F4, maybe even up to F8 is all 1 gigabyte size models. So if you have small models, you can do it. Unless you want to get to those larger models, you got to start pushing up higher SKUs. So then I think it just becomes just a story of, how do I negotiate the right licensing and pricing for my organization? Are we small? Great. We'll just go premium per user. Done. Easy, all managed. It just works. If you're a bigger organization, you're going to need to think more about this. You're not going to want to just throw a bunch of people into a very high, big Fabric SKU. Even though you have a bigger company, it may not be the best monetary decision for you. Does that make sense what I'm describing there?
I mean, here's what I'm hearing, and I know we're at time, is we're not bearing import mode right now.
No.
But we're making plans. We're making we're talking to it about, like how are you going to take care of everyone after, basically.
And Microsoft's not dumb, and they're not doing dumb things with the licensing, right? They're going to try and maximize their value out of whatever you're paying for. So if they can keep this decision point in a way that says, look, you can start with Fabric, they like it, But what they want to do, as soon as your models get large, Microsoft is going to want to push you higher. It's going to want to push you into a bigger SKU, because then they get more money, right, to run all the things. And they're running a lot of infrastructure. So I get it, Tommy. Like there's definitely decisions here, and I think both positions are being jockeyed, right? The user who's consuming the SKUs, they're trying to jockey for the most efficient. They're min-maxing, right? I want the max amount of performance for the minimum amount of cost. Microsoft, on the other hand, has different objectives, which is like we need to maximize revenue and minimize like pain and suffering, but also give a good experience. So they're trying to give you the most efficient experience at the best price, but also they can't give it away for free either. They got to make something. So there's this dichotomy that's kind of getting played out here, I think, across these two experiences.
It's beautiful. Well, what a topic today, my
Speaking
friend.
of beautiful, it's beautiful that we end this episode now. We are finally wrapping this up here. So thank you all very much for listening on the podcast. We really appreciate you. If you like these kind of heated discussions, I think this was a pretty good one, by the way, let us know. Also in the chat, if there's particular topics that you care about, if there's typical topics you want to hear more about. We haven't talked about Excel in a while. Is that interesting to you? Let us know in the comments. Go hit out our forums. We need to make sure that you let us know what you want to talk about. That way, Mike and Tommy don't continually talk about AI every single episode from here on for the near future. Although I think it's really making moves these days. I really am liking it. That being said, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You'll find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. If you have a question, idea, or topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode, head over to powerbi.tips/podcast. Leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation all at powerbi.tips social media channels.
Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Explicit measures, pump it up, be it high. Tommy and Mike lighting up the sky. Dance to the data, laughs in the mix. Fabric and AI, get your fix. Explicit